There is always police cars when I film. Noise. Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel, and welcome back to another Mental Health Mondays, which is exciting. Today, what is the plan, Marie? I don't know. I don't really have a plan. We're just going to talk about DBT because that has been something that has been very highly requested in a very indirect way. A lot of people just want to know questions about it, etc. So I thought I would... Basically what I'm thinking of doing is talking to you a bit about what it is, just kind of the logistics of it, and then explaining to you maybe 4 or 5 of my favourite skills that we are given in DBT, because they are actually very good. Very good. So yeah, let's get into it. So DBT is dialectical behavioural therapy. It's very much designed for people who have problems with emotional regulation, which is, in simple terms, experiencing very intense emotions and not really being able to control them. That's kind of what I think of it as. A lot of people with personality disorders are referred to DBT as it is like the leading #1 treatment for it. A lot of people ask me if it's like CBT. It is kind of like CBT, I guess, but it's just different, really. That doesn't make any sense. I feel like DBT like builds upon CBT, if that makes sense. It's like the next stages. It builds upon the foundations of CBT, but it just adds more. So it's like the house on the pavement of CBT, if that makes sense. And I think DBT is really effective if you really throw yourself into it, because it was actually created by a woman named Marsha, and she created it, if I'm correct, I think it was in the 1980s, and she had spent her whole life in and out of psychiatric units. She had borderline personality herself, and during her inpatient stays and like constant treatment, she realised that there was no treatment for personality disorders. There just wasn't anything really for them that worked, and she created DBT. And I think that is really, really important to remember when you're doing it, because I know for me definitely there has been many a time when I've kind of just hit a brick wall with it and I'm like, I'm fucking fed up of this shit, to put it in like real terms. But if you remember who made it and how she made it, it makes it a lot more like, oh okay, maybe this will work for me. So I've been doing DBT for nearly a year now, and the whole course of DBT lasts a whole year. During that time you will do the set of skills twice, and there are 30 skills that you learn. I have 1 hour of individual therapy a week, and I have 2 hours of group a week. And it doesn't sound that much, but I think that is still very intense for someone who's still trying to lead their life, if you know what I mean, like along with working and trying to see your friends and learning to drive and doing education or having, you know, family, like trying to fit everything. It is quite a lot, and I'm very much looking forward to when I finish it, because it takes up a lot of time. It does take up a lot of time, because not only are you doing the therapy sessions, but you have homework set every week, and most of the homeworks correlate with each day. So like on a Monday you have to do this, Tuesday this, blah blah blah. So it does take up a lot of time, and it's a commitment. It's not something you should just do as a whim, because if you don't have time for it, just don't do it and wait for a time when it is better for you. That's kind of my advice. A lot of people have asked me how I managed to get DBT, and I don't really know. I was discharged from my last psychiatric hospital literally this time last year, which is mad, and the DBT program had just started in the city where I live, so my CPN like hopped on that shit and she got me on it. So I think you have to be referred by your mental health team. I'm pretty sure you wouldn't be able to be referred through a GP. And just FYI, I'm speaking as someone who lives in the UK and therefore is fortunate enough to have the NHS, who are amazing. So yeah. If in my ideal world, like, therapy would be the #1 thing in our society. I feel like everyone should have some form of therapy in their life, even if you don't have a mental health problem, because the way I think about it, right, you go to the doctors for your physical health, just for a checkup sometimes. You go to the dentist to tend for your teeth, but like, when do you ever go and tend your mind? Like, when? no one ever does that if you're not like forced into it. And I think it's really important to just go and speak to people about your life, because everyone has struggles, like everyone finds things hard. And I don't know, I think the best thing about therapy is getting like a very rational and clarified view on your life. It's like a second opinion, and they're very non-judgmental. So yeah, I don't know why I was speaking about that, but yeah, that's what I think. Anyway, this is my DBT folder. It's a bit battered now, and you basically get like an agenda. It's like school, basically. It's like literally school. And there are rules when you start therapy. Some of the rules actually seem quite obscure when you first start, and you're like, how is that a rule? That's really unfair. For example, I think the one that most people kind of get defensive almost over is when you start DBT, like I said, you have individual therapy sessions, which means you have an individual therapist. What the fuck is that? Man. It sounds like aliens. Can you shut up now? I'm trying to film a vid. And you're allowed to ring them between like 10 and 7, I think, every day. Obviously it changes for whoever you've got, which means that you have their phone number, and if you need skills coaching, then you can ring them. So if you're in crisis or distressed or feel impulsive or need some advice, then you can ring them. I'm someone who never has utilised that service because I'm not going to go into that. But one of the biggest rules is that if you have self-harmed or had any self-destructive behaviours, you can't contact your therapist for 24 hours after the incident has happened. And when I first read that, I was like, that's so fucking mean. Like, why would you do that? That's so mean. Like, obviously if you've self-harmed, you need help, but I totally understand it now. And it means that you have to think before you do it. You can't just self-harm and then rely on having that support afterwards. You have to take control before it happens. Other rules are kind of just more generalised. It's more like about group, because obviously you're in group, so you're with maybe like 5 to 8 people or whatever in that group, and you're not allowed to have like a sexual relationship, or even, I think if you do have a sexual relationship or you build up any kind of relationship with the other person, it needs to be out in the open. It's not allowed to be like a secretive one. You're not allowed to turn up drunk or high, and if you are drunk or high, then the rule is that you have to act sober so that no one can tell, which is kind of a weird one. Like, you can be, but you just have to act sober. So that's kind of the background. Let me get my skills list up. So anyway, like I said, it's not really like a 3-hour program. It doesn't work that way. Every single week you have to fill in a diary sheet. Now, I will do an overlay of what my diary sheet looks like, and if you do DBT, can you let me know if yours are like different? Like, I'd be very interested in that. I don't know why, that would just interest me. And it basically, you have to record your urges. So everything's rated like out of 5, which can be kind of annoying, but you know, you just have to do it. So it's like your urges to commit suicide, your urges to self-harm, urges to harm others or misuse drugs or alcohol, if you've had any alcohol, and literally you have to like do it to the glass. Like one time I went out and I had like 14 Prosecco's, and my therapist saw it and she was like, "You're right, babe." And I was like, yeah, I was just very waved. If you've had any illicit drugs, if you've had your meds as they are prescribed, PRN or over-the-counter medication, and then your actions. So if you've self-harmed, do of harm to others. So that, I think that just means if you've hurt someone else. I don't really know what that means. I just always see it and I'm like, no, no, that's basically what it is. And you have to do it, fill it in every single day, which is very annoying. And I hate doing diary sheets. I just hate them. Really. Then the next sheet you get given is literally just a massive list of all the skills. So this is where I'm going to talk to you about some of the skills that I find helpful. So the skills are set into 4 categories. There are mindfulness skills, interpersonal skills, emotional regulation skills, and distress tolerance skills. I would say I find the distress tolerance ones and the mindfulness ones really helpful. Mindfulness is kind of the stream that runs through all the skills. So after every time you've learned a set of skills, you do a course of mindfulness for like 2 weeks. Mindfulness is like the biggest thing in DBT, and I'm not gonna lie, I fucking love it. Mindfulness is my guilty pleasure, and This is coming from the girl that used to shout at people to shut up when they asked me to do mindfulness, because I'd be like, it doesn't fucking work, I'm not doing that mindfulness bullshit, don't mention mindfulness to me. Like, I was so ignorant about it, and now it's literally part of my daily routine because it really helps me function. Mindfulness queen makes me sound like I'm expecting it to be like really like, oh look how great I am. No, I just find it really helpful. And yeah, the skills that I find the hardest, however, are the interpersonal skills, which is very ironic because when I started DBT, I didn't really talk about this. When you start DBT, you have to have like pre-treatment, and I actually scored 1 under, and that was because they said that my interpersonal skills were really good. I used to think I had quite good interpersonal skills, but they're actually pretty atrocious. The things I find hard is when I feel low, I just withdraw like no one else. I'm like the snail, I just like curl up into my shell and I don't talk to anyone. It's not very helpful. Anyway, that's going off topic. So skills. So one of the most useful skills that I've used is Wise Mind, and this is like number 1 on the skill sheet. So this is the way they always describe it. On one side there's emotional mind, and then on the other there's reasonable mind, and in the middle is wise mind. I, would you believe, find myself very much in the emotional mind, and I think that's very common for a lot of people who need DBT or use it. But in short term, you're following your heart and reasonable mind is following your head, but they're both quite unhelpful. You can't just completely follow your heart and you can't just completely follow your head, because if you just follow your head, you're not thinking about people's emotions and how it might affect them, and if you're following just your heart, you won't be able to think of maybe what would actually be the smart choice to make. Wise mind is the tiny little section in the middle that falls between the two, and wise mind is basically like seeing the value of both reason and emotion and making your decision based off the two of them as opposed to just solely one. So when we do wise mind practices, it's basically having to take control of yourself a bit more. And if that's one thing that DBT offers, it's the ability to be able to make decisions in the right way and take control of yourself and not just be really impulsive. So the skills basically follow suit from that, and they're very simple. Like, these skills aren't revolutionary, they're easy things that you can do every day, and most of the time people don't even know you're doing them. So with the wise mind practices, we ask ourselves like, are we in wise mind? What would wise mind do? And it's something that's very weird, okay? I want you to do this with me. Don't pretend you're all cool, like, do this with me, okay? We're gonna pretend we are in a situation where we're highly distressed and we feel like we can't see the light, and that's something that I definitely feel a lot of the time. I feel like I'm very tunnel visioned. We have to ask ourselves, what would wise mind do? I remember that a professor told me one time, listen to your wisdom, and that stuck with me through the whole of my recovery, because inside us all is wisdom, and it might be like, you might refer to it as your conscience. It's basically just what you know is right, and I like to think of it as a wisdom because I like to imagine it as like this like yellow light or like this yellow glittery dust inside me, and sometimes it can be very small, and I often feel it around like just like almost in my heart area basically. Sometimes this wisdom like flows through me and I can feel it in my hands and it flows through my veins, and all this like yellow glitter inside of me just is exuberating me, and it makes me want to be happy and want to do the right thing. But sometimes it can be overshadowed and I feel like this yellow dust is just a tiny speck of dust inside me and it doesn't feel like anything. When I talk about wise mind, that's kind of what I'm referring to, and when I say it, it's very weird, and this is like kind of weird for me to make because it is quite personal. It's something that I normally just like talk about in group, and even then I don't really talk about it, I just nod when other people talk about it, but it's been referred to as, you can feel it. I just want you to try and feel it for a moment, like listen to your wisdom, and then I personally just feel it in my chest and I know the right way to go. I know what's right in a situation. But when you are highly distressed, it can be so hard to actually listen to it because you know it's there, and if you ask yourself like, what would wise mind do? you know the answer, but actually following through with the answer can be so difficult. But that's one of the best things I've learned in DBT, because it does just give you that control back that you want so badly. Because I think a lot of mental disorders are actually about control, like eating disorders, OCD, they all play into this aspect of control and what you want. And when you take back that control, it's like you're winning at life. And I'm not even joking, it can be hard sometimes. And if you don't suffer with mental health problems, I feel like that might be one thing that you don't understand, is how hard it can be to control yourself. But my whole recovery was just searching for some aspect of control, and then once I finally found skills that helped me get that, I wanted to rebel against them. I didn't want to do them, because listening to my wise mind is not something I'm used to. I'm used to like just self-destruct, and that's where I feel comfort, and that's everything that I've known for years was just self-destruct. So skills like this can be very difficult, and I think that's why DBT is hard, because you have to carry on going. Carry on going. Another skill that I really think is important is please skill, and this is in the emotional regulation section. Now, if you've been in DBT, you know they love an acronym. They love an acronym. So please stands for physical illness, eating, avoid drugs, sleep and exercise. It's basically just a skill that I find quite difficult, where you need to keep your physical health in check, because one thing I've learned in recovery is that if your mental health is bad, your physical health also suffers, and vice versa. Say if I'm having a bad mental health day, I definitely probably won't get out of bed. I probably will either sleep too much or not enough. I won't eat the right things, or I would just neglect the eating aspect. A lot of people can turn to drugs during this time just as an escape mechanism, really, and exercise is just what? Who is exercise? Because I don't know who she is. So these are really important skills, and they're basically just every single day that you should take into consideration all of these aspects. Take care of any physical illnesses if you have them, because I know a lot of people suffer from like chronic pain or just colds, or you know, take care of it and deal with it, and deal with it in the right way, in the wise mind way. Eating, you need to eat the right things, and you need to eat enough. Avoiding drugs and alcohol, basically, just because we can't live in this kind of escapism land. And I know certain drugs help people, but DBT is very much about facing reality, and if you're constantly waved as fuck, you can't do that. Sleeping, so you need to sleep well. Follow the sleep hygiene, which I'm gonna do a whole video on my sleep hygiene because it's so important, and I hate when people bash it because it's so freaking important. Yeah, I'm gonna do that soon. And exercise, even if it's just having a walk. You don't have to go and do like a Grace Fit workout in the gym, you can just go for a walk. So I think I'm gonna do one more skill that I find very useful, and if you've enjoyed this, then I will do a second part to this video with other skills that I think are useful, because I'm looking at this and I'm like, there's so many more I can talk about, but I don't want this video to be like a fucking movie. The last one I'm going to talk about is half smile and willing hands. Just cut me some slack before you start making the judgments, okay? We're gonna do this non-judgmentally. Half smiling and willing hands is something, as soon as I saw it, I was like, don't you fucking dare ask me to half smile and do willing hands, because I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing that shit. It won't work. I was wrong. Very, very wrong. I try and half smile as often as I can, and willing hands is something that I try to use when I do mindfulness, and like in the morning, and when I'm talking to people. So before I get to how I do it, let's just talk about the basics. Stick to the facts, Marie, check the facts. So half smiling is described as kind of like a serene look on your face. It's the Mona Lisa. That's what my group therapist always calls it, and she's cool, I like her a lot, so we're gonna call it the Mona Lisa. It's basically, you don't have to be like, or like, it's not like smiling the fuck out of your face, it's just a serene look. It's not noticeable to anyone else around you. So instead of being like this, as your natural resting bitch face, which I have, I'm like,
she is a bitch. B-I-C-T-H.
That's my natural face, and people are like, Instead, I try and do this.
Damn, look, I look like Mona Lisa right now.
That is half smiling, and that's really awkward for me to do because there's just a camera sat on my face. You guys, if you're watching this, if you've got to this point, like, no one's gonna judge you. Like, I'm the one putting myself online doing a fucking half smile and willing hands. Like, let's just do this. I want you to just half smile. Just for like 10 seconds, we're just gonna half smile. This is so weird. It's like turning the muscles in your mouth upwards a bit. It's completely discreet and other people won't know that you're doing it. And it's really weird to describe, but when you half smile, you're like, okay, I can get shit done. That's how I feel when I half smile. I'm like, yeah, I can get shit done. Give me some shit and I'll get it done. It's like what I've mentioned before, changing your physical body chemistry and appearance affects your mental state, and it affects your ability and your productivity and everything like that. It makes me look like I want to talk to you, when before I did want to talk to you, but nothing in my body was signaling that I did. Now onto willing hands. Willing hands aren't jazz hands. They're not like, hey bitches. Not like a James Charles, hey sisters, hey sisters. You know that music group that he's in? It's not like that. Willing hands is like this. It's putting your hands open, and in doing so you're opening your whole body. Like, instead of being like hunched and like very closed off, you're open, you're willing. Willingness is like the ultimate foundation of DBT, along with wise mind. It's like willing and wise, they're best friends and they made DBT. But willing hands I try to use when I'm doing mindfulness, and when you're in this position, it's supposed to just give off this energy that you are willing. And it's something that they want you to use. So for example, when you're being very, what's that word? When you're procrastinating. If you take a willing position, you're more willing to do it. Very weird, but it works. It actually works. And guys, you don't know, kind of like embarrassing for me to talk about, because it's aspects of my day that other people don't recognize until you tell them. But I use it a lot. I use it when I'm really trying to like be better and like work on my recovery in a very proactive way. So yeah, I use willing hands. I use willing hands at work all the time because I can get quite anxious before work, and I notice now is that I can take up a very closed off position, even if it's just like my feet are turned away from the customer and I've got my arms folded. I'm like this. I'm like, yeah, so do you want insurance? Instead I'm like, let's be open. Like, I use my willing hands. And yeah, it's a very nice pose and posture to take up, because I'm very much about like energies and the energy that people give off from me. And trust me, if you want something from someone, use some willing hands. Make yourself open, because when people see you as an open and willing person, as someone who they can trust, as opposed to someone who's closed off and maybe shady and has ulterior motives, they are more likely to cooperate with you. People take in the energy that you give out, so that's really important to remember.
So fucking hell, I'm literally DBT'd out. I'm DBT'd out. Out.
I have therapy tomorrow and I'm gonna be like, guys, I made a vid about it. No, I won't. They don't know I do DBT. They don't know I do YouTube. But yeah, I did a little like Jeffree Star, like Shane Dawson, like, there we go. God, I'm literally going crazy at all this therapy talk. Oh my god. So on that note, I'm gonna love you and leave you. Like I said before, if you do want another video on DBT, because I've got 30 skills, I don't like all of them, and I can do a video on some skills that I don't like. But yeah, if you want another video, if you want a kind of different video, like I can show you how I actually use them in my day-to-day life, if that would be more up your street, as opposed to me just spewing all this DBT shit over you. Literally like DBT, 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 DBT. DBT, DBT, do. I'm literally going crazy. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for sticking around, and yeah, I will see you in another video soon.